We are moving on to a new factor of awakening this month. That would be concentration. Concentration. Yeah. Again, all of these factors kind of build on each other, And you notice that calm is what we just spent the month on. Calm is one of the precursors to concentration. A lot of times with concentration, we think it must be effort, it must be striving. I mean, don't I have to work a lot at it to get concentrated? And actually, there's a bit of a misunderstanding there. Concentration comes from letting go more, softening more, calming more. That's part of the deal with concentration. Calm, concentration. Concentration, we've talked about it before along the way in various ways with all of you. But concentration is one of the areas that didn't get so much attention. Literally, isn't it, when the practices came over here 50, 60 years ago and so forth, it was really much more emphasis on the insight practices rather than on concentration. And like some other areas of practice, compassion, for example, and self-compassion, for example, which we have found, and teachers have found, we need more of in the West. But it took a while to see that, you know. Similarly with concentration, it wasn't emphasized at the beginning. And as time went on, we've come to appreciate its importance in the development and deepening of meditation practice. So there's more emphasis on it now. You'll see more books on concentration and on cultivating the jhana practices and so forth and so on. And that is because concentration is very, 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 very highly correlated. The depth of meditation is very highly correlated with the degree of concentration that one has trained, has cultivated, has established. Yeah. And there's no real workaround with that. The insights that we can begin to have in this practice are deeply related to how still, if you've heard us use the camera analogy before, concentration is like stabilizing the camera. It's like getting that tripod in there, a nice tripod in there, stabilizing, so that we can see more clearly what's going on, in the mind, the heart, in the body, without wavering so much, without shaky handheld camera activity, which is how it is most of the time for us. And so it is that cultivation that we encourage every single time we meditate. You'll hear us emphasizing the importance of settling and cultivating the internal holding environment. And this is all part of concentration, the gathering of the energies, the gathering of all of the energies, the beginning to focus, the beginning to narrow the focus in a certain way, to bring all of the energies together, right? And to develop more of that sense of calm, right? so that concentration can begin to deepen. Yeah. This is one of the most important things, and yet it's one of the most humbling things for us. Yeah. And because we're so restless, there's so much restless energy in us, yeah. There's so much conditioning around and so much stimuli in our culture, so much energy, so much restlessness, so much moving out kind of energy, that really calming and steadying and concentration is those two elements, steadying and calming, or staying and calming. Yeah. Those two elements, those two aspects are very, very challenging for us. Very, very challenging for us. And we all know this. We all know this. Yeah. We all know this. I think that's part of the reason we wanted to skip over it, frankly. I know it's one of the reasons I wanted to skip over it. Well, concentration isn't the most important thing. That's not what really leads to insight. So let me just go straight to insight. Let me just go straight to open awareness and be with whatever's coming. And we can do that. And of course, a lot of us have done that and continue to do that. Just be open to whatever's going on. But here's the reality. The reality is that our practice will only deepen further as our concentration deepens further. That's just the way it is. Yeah. Things need to settle a bit more, settle a bit more, settle a bit more. So we simply encourage that. It's part of like it's part of, have you ever seen a musician, first of all, tune the instrument, get it all, get really settled, get themselves really settled, get the instrument really settled and tuned and steady and calm, Yeah, it's like that. Somebody doesn't just pick it up and start playing, right? That's what we want to do. We just want to play. We just want to say what's going on in this mind and heart, without, without, without settling, because it's challenging. It's challenging for us. We're wild. We're wild creatures. We've got a lot of wild energies running through the landscape. We know this, yeah. And so concentration is just slowly but surely, a little bit with every meditation practice, with every session, appreciating it and cultivating it a little bit, at least for part of the time, at least for part of the session. It's never wasted to cultivate settling, softening, calming, as we've been doing for the last month. Yeah, yeah. Softening the breath, softening the body, softening the heart, calming, 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 calming. A little bit at a time. Yeah. It's really a deepening. We could say that concentration is really deepening the holding environment. So that at first we're cultivating it, and then we learn to stay with it even more and more and more, to linger there, to prolong that, to be able to create a holding environment that becomes even more stable, more settled. And there's this brief periods, yeah. If it starts to feel good in there, like, like it's a relief. Oh, I really can let go of soften the breath a little bit more. And it starts to feel good, and it starts to feel better to just stay present, to just stay in the vicinity. There isn't as much pull of the afflictive emotions, of the irritating thoughts, and everything grabbing and pulling and pulling and pulling for attention. Yeah, for distraction in all of its forms, just pulling us away, pulling us away. This is more interesting. This is more interesting. We need this. It's this, the breath and the settledness becomes more interesting. No, it takes a while for that to happen, although you can taste it sometimes just a little bit at a time. And when you have lingering there a little, it's like, oh, yeah, it is. It is about keeping that around, learning how the next move is how to keep it around a little bit. Yeah, right. The Buddha encouraged that. This is not attachment. It's it's cultivation, and it's one of the things that's very important to cultivate. Yeah. And it's challenging, but it's rewarding and it's important. And it really begins to lead to, we hear about a port in the storm. The concentrate can create a port in the storm. But here's the thing, it really can. And as concentration deepens, it really starts to become more of a refuge. Yeah, a real refuge. Yeah, a real refuge. It's like, oh my goodness, I can really take, it's really possible to take a break from some of the speed and the aggression and the distraction. It's actually becomes more longer. When the mind wanders away, there's a wanting to return. At first, it's like, please return. Can I be willing to return? Can I be willing to return? Because no, I'd really rather follow that story. I'd really rather, and at a certain point is no, I'd really rather not follow that so much. Later, I'd really rather settle here. I'd really rather settle here. And it's a break for the nervous system, and it really becomes a uh, begins to feel good and more settled, just more settled. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. And then when we do begin to open up the attention to other things, we can do that in a more stable way. There'll be more about that later. But it's really for now with concentration, which we'll be spending more time on for this whole month. Yeah, giving that its due. Yeah, yeah. Really, 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 really giving it uh, more attention than we usually might in our meditation practice. Just the settling, the calming, the inner holding environment, and the staying with that for most of the period of the meditation. Just staying with that as if that were the central practice, yeah, for the next month. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So let's do that. Let's do that together. Okay. This will be we'll do this for the next month together. Okay. So let's open up. Let's open up.
Okay.
And when you're ready, beginning to slow down movements, lightly, lightly closing the eyes. And forming the intention, right here at the beginning of practice, whatever's going on in the mind, whatever's going on in the mind, we're going to kind of want to bracket that. That's for later. That's for later. And whenever it arises, when pulse tries to pull us away during the meditation session, it's just simply say, not now. It's not now. And be willing to return. to the vicinity of the breath, to the movement of the breath. And as much as possible, taking interest in the breath. When we say returning to the breath and to the movement of the breath as if it were interesting. It's the other quality that we cultivate here in the development of concentration and in all of meditation is interest, the cultivation of interest in some areas that we're not particularly innately, obviously interested in. I'm way more interested in my thinking than my breath, right? All of us are. That's our starting point. Learning to take more interest in the breath. And then the direction is calming that breath, softening that breath, comforting that breath, finding a comfortable breath. Feeling into it. And the practice of patience really comes into play uh, with these practices as well, as it requires many repetitions, many, many moments when the mind wanders away into some of its familiar uh, places. Yeah. And the recognition of that and the willingness to return to the vicinity of the breath, the breathing. As if it mattered, as if you cared, as if it were important. The mind wanders away. The acknowledgement, but the not now, not following that, and being willing to return to the next breath, this very next breath. in the last few minutes of the meditation, settling back a bit more and softening. Softly staying in the vicinity of the breathing.